Hayley, how are you? Thanks for coming in.
I'm amazing, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good, really good. Just been rolling, just been talking to a lot of amazing people. So keen to basically dive into some really crucial topics, and I think people can learn a lot from you. So let's pivot this into your business world.
Okay.
So you're incredibly successful in your business. You've created everything from scratch. Nothing was handed to you on a plate. Tell me about that journey and what it takes to keep it running through thick and thin, because you've been through how many recessions?
Well, I started my business around 2008, 2009.
Oh, right, deep in the middle of that.
Yeah, when I couldn't afford to live in my home.
Sure. Okay.
My modelling career was a really sort of, it's not a very reliable source of income.
Sure.
And I couldn't afford to pay my mortgage. It had jumped right up really high, as you know, mortgages did back then. And that's when I decided I'll rent my property out and I will move in something small for me and my son. And I did that. And then out of that need, like I say, I called the agent in and they didn't value my property how I wanted. They didn't deal with me how I wanted to. So that need created the business for me. There's a real gap in the market here. So that's what I did. So I started my business while I was in this little rental, and then I built it up. And it's just organically gone through that. And now we're in another recession, really, aren't we?
Yes.
Now we're in high mortgage rates, as you know, 14 mortgage rises since February 2022. Is it going to go up again, Sam? You're the mortgage broker. Is it going to go up again? Please, everyone wants to know. Is it going to go up again? Because see me, I can be creative in all markets. That's me. I'm good at that. There's always an upside to it, isn't there? But
yeah, so I say from a finance point of view, this is quite interesting because in our mortgage brokerage practice, we're always getting this question asked. It's one of the most common questions. Is it the right time to do a mortgage? Are the interest rates looking to go up, or are they looking to go down? Inflation is all-time high, but even the inflation calmed down recently. The Bank of England base rate increased their rates. So everybody's like, what's going on? I was like, listen, this is A-levels economics. And I can give a refresher on this, but that when you actually have recession, especially a like incredible amount of dumping of money into the economy to recover from any kind of turmoil, which was COVID 2020. So our governments, they ended up printing so much money that they didn't even know how much money they printed. They ended up calling it M1 instead of a monetary value. That's how much money was actually released into the economy. What tends to happen? That actually pumps up the inflation. Inflation, all it really means is the inflation goes up. This glass of water, if it previously cost me 10 pounds, it's now going to cost me 20 pounds. So the value of each dollar or each pound goes down, so you need more of it to acquire the same thing. Okay, that's inflation. The problem is, once the inflation calms down, and we start to recover, one of the most crucial things that the banks need to sell in order to recover from the inflation and recover from the recession is money. Yeah. They need to sell money at what? A higher rate. Yeah. So what's happened in the last, say, 6, 7, 8 months in the UK anyway, is the interest rates have gone like this. Yeah. Inflation has gone like this. Now the inflation is calming down a little bit, but the interest rates have stabilized and Bank of England base rate has gone up. Reason being is because they need to start to sell money in order to recover faster. There's so much deficit built up from 2020, 2021 because of quantitative easing that we have to basically have no choice but to actually sell money to larger businesses, smaller businesses, to personal loans, business finances. The reason that has to happen in order to recover from the economy much faster, because money is hugely profitable to sell and people need money. Developers need money to develop, to finish their projects. People need money to keep running their businesses. So selling of money is hugely profitable. Therefore, what I would say is anyone who's looking or who is thinking that the interest rates are going to calm down dramatically, and yes, they were about 1.5% about 8-9 months ago. Yeah. Worst case scenario, we're going to go back to about 3%. Well, okay, if you are predicting for that to happen, what is the possibility of that taking place? The possibility is that the inflation goes down even lower, much, much lower, and the economy recovers much faster. Another reason why economy is not going to recover faster, and this is going to be much worse than 2008, is because we are impacted by the global economic situation. Russia and Ukraine war is not looking to calm down anytime soon. And the reason why that matters to us in our day-to-day living is because the cost of energy prices have gone up significantly, not only for us, but also for businesses where we buy our stuff from. So everything is costing more. So unless you are actually saying, okay, I know for a fact that Putin is going to pull the plug on the war, and that is going to diffuse, and after damaging all these relationships, the trade relationships from natural resources that Western world have created with Putin, that's going to overnight somehow fix as well. Yeah. The cost of living is not going to go down because the cost of living is directly correlated with energy prices, which were previously being imported at a very good cost price from Russia. Now, all of that is basically going to China and India, largest economies. So Putin is actually 10 times more wealthier, or Russia is. But what is actually not happening is we and Germany, we are now having to go and beg Middle Eastern countries to actually say, okay, we know we damage our relationship with you guys, but we have no choice, we need natural resources. So therefore, the cost of living is not looking to calm down anytime soon. And that's what people need to realize. So back to the point of interest rate, long answer to your question is interest rates are not going back to where they were. Simple as full stop.
So, one more question from me. Should people, in your opinion as the professional, should people invest in a long-term mortgage at the rate it is now? Or is it going to go down? I know you don't know the answer to this exactly, obviously it's just a prediction, but people are asking me, as somebody that sells property, what should we do, Hayley? You know, you're our advisor, what should we do? And then I put them onto you. But obviously, I want to be able to give them some kind of guidance when they're thinking of offering on a property, because they're going to make a 5-year plan. Yeah. Should they fix for 5 years?
I would say fixing for 5 years is probably the most sensible solution right now. Because if you fix for 2 years, the 2-year interest rates are about 25 to 30% higher than a 5-year fixed. So banks are always playing on the emotions and the behavioral psychology in the marketplace. A lot of people are thinking the interest rates are going to come down because they've gone up so much so quickly, so they're going to come down as well. So 2-year fix is a good, beautiful spot. No, because you're going to pay 30% more interest rate. So a typical 2-year fix is operating around 6.5%, 5 years operating on about 5.2, 5.3%, depending on the circumstances. So that difference is where the banks are making money. They're playing on people's emotions. So I would say 5-year fix is possibly the best thing that you can do, because worst case scenario, any recession, it doesn't last for a very long time. What goes up is eventually has to calm down, and the other way around. Yeah. So the normal recovery from a recession or this kind of financial turmoil, it probably takes about 2-3 years. This is what we saw in 2008. By 2011, we actually saw a recovery of the market going in the right direction. This time is those were mortgage crises in the United States. But this time it's very different. It's more of a global situation. So I don't anticipate, plus recovery from COVID and quantitative easing. So I would say probably about 5-6 years time is very good to actually be in a secure position. And worst case scenario, even if 4 years down the line everything recovers, you're still operating on a good interest rate. Because the worst case scenario is 3 years down the line, you fix for 2 years, the political situation becomes even more of a craziness, and then we are actually looking at higher interest rate spiking, which is something that is most definitely can happen. But it's anyone's guess. But I would say, based on historic data, that's the best way of predicting exactly where the market is going is historic data. Yeah. And the possibility of things happening versus probability. Yeah. So I would say the best thing to do is to go for 5 years, not for 2 years, not for 10 years, because 10 years is a very, very long time. Plus, if people fix for 10 years, they have to pay huge penalties to come out. So it's not only your mortgage or the house purchase that you have to think about, you also have to think about personal circumstances can change in 10 years. Yeah. What if 5 years down the line you're not with the same partner anymore? What if something else happens? What if your job situation changes massively? So fixing yourself for 10 years is such a long time. What if you want to move to Australia? all of these things have to be taken into consideration. So the older we're getting, the quicker the time is passing. Therefore, I would say 5 years is a very sweet spot right now to lock in.
In 2008, I know the mortgage rate jumped up. Mine was like out of control. Like I say, I couldn't afford it, I had to move out. What kind of percentage was it on back then in that recession? Do you remember? 2008? What was it?
Yeah, it was operating about higher than what we have right now. It's about 8%, 8%, 8.3, 8.2%.
It's because we've had it so good, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's all relative because we're giving, it's a contrast. We're looking at 1%. And now we're like, okay, but like,
but
can I not get 1%?
That's not normal. Like, you
exactly.
know, and we're thinking that it's really bad at the moment. And it has obviously shocked a lot of people. One of my mortgages trebled, you know. So, but that's really good what you said about the 5 year, because at least you know where you are for 5 years. Yeah. There's no surprises. And then you can do your budgeting around that. Yeah. Can't you?
I think so. And I also think that if you have 1 or 2 properties and you're not a portfolio landlord, so 20, 30 properties, and they're all operating on limited company structures, the one thing is the interest rates have gone up, but the stress test has also gone up. Stress test, it simply means that you're not going to be able to borrow as much money as possible as you previously did. So again, not to make the situation a lot more complicated, but I think there is another problem in the real estate market that's coming up. That real estate market in the UK is going to tank at some point. By what margin? In what localized areas? Some areas are not affected, like the area where you operate, they're not going to be affected majorly. But the areas like central London, prices are going to take a hit because there are tens of thousands of portfolio landlords in London and around London who have portfolios operating on near enough 75% loan to values, because all they wanted to do is get more properties, and now 2, 3, 4 years in now, when their mortgages are coming up, they're operating on 75% loan to values on majority of their portfolios. There's a problem. The stress test is not entertaining loan to value at 75%. Therefore, they have 2 choices: sell the property and enjoy the capital gains tax. Number 2 is pump money into your property, because the loan that you can get now was a lot less than you got before. So the solution here is only 2 things. Either put the money into your property. Number 2 is sell the asset. And number 3 is enjoy standard variable rate, which is not awesome. So a lot of people are not actually thinking about this, because standard variable rates are operating up, around 8.5%, 9% at the moment. And from commercial portfolio point of view, that becomes a big problem. So I think I'm suggesting a lot of people to actually start to think about ring fencing your cash liquidity position as much as you possibly can, because in real estate, I think this is going to be incredible, because you will have abundance of portfolios coming up, so you can actually sell, and there's going to be a lot of the buyers who are going to want to buy this, because they will be at somewhat discounted rate. So in real estate, agents are going to do incredibly well. But I think there is a storm coming for landlords, and a lot of people are worried about the stress test and also the interest rates. Combined, it's a double trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoke about that this week on my social media, about landlords having a really hard time of it as well. Even though tenants' rents have gone through the roof, as a managing agent, I've had to put everybody's rent up, because my landlords are like, well, you either put the rent up or they move out, because you're going to have to sell it for me, Hayley. So, like, it's a double-edged sword, because that's good for me. Well, I'll sell it then. But then my tenants I have a relationship with, they have a home. That's their home. And I've got to either hike their rent up or sell the home that they're living in. It's a really difficult situation for me, and it's a really difficult situation for the landlord, and it's also a difficult situation for the tenant. So it's been a really volatile time for people, because people are, they think, why are you, Hayley, putting my rent up? Which obviously I'm not putting it up, but the landlord's mortgage has trebled in price, say from 6 to 12 to 2,400 a month, and he's only renting the property out for 1,500. What's he going to do? He's either going to put the rent up to 2,400, which actually there are laws in place that say you can't actually raise the rent more than 6% a year. But he's like, okay, then I'll sell it.
Just 6%.
That's what that's supposed to be the max. But obviously, if people decide to pay it, then they pay it. But
so the landlords cannot, by the governing authorities and the powers to be. So for example, if you're renting the property out to me and you increase my rent by, say, 12%, I can challenge that categorically speaking?
You can challenge it, yeah, you can challenge it, but then the landlord will probably have to sell. This is the thing.
Yeah, it's a catch-22 problem.
It's really catch-22
because they have their outgoings going up.
Yeah, because otherwise they're going to be at a loss every month.
Understood. Now that makes sense. So, okay, one of the things I wanted to ask is, you deal with house buying transactions all day long. For years you've done it and done it incredibly well. When people negotiate and they're buying their first property, what would be the best negotiation strategy? Because I see people doing silly things and they end up wasting everybody's time, including their own. So, and they end up losing on the property. So, from your experience, what does a good negotiation look like to actually be efficient and not waste anyone's time? Just basically get to the core. What does that look like?
Okay. Well, obviously that's my trade. That's what I do. I'm a negotiator, and I love to do that. I'm passionate about it. I always say, if it's a property that you want to buy, and maybe it's stretching you, and you really love it, but actually you can't quite afford it. I always say you have to give the people selling that house a reason to sell it to you for less than they're asking. Because authentically, you really may fall in love with it, but you can't quite get to the price that they're asking for it. But if you're genuine about it and say, we can't really get to that price, but we love it, we will commit to it, we will, really go for it really quickly, and we won't let you down, and they do everything asked of them. If you give people selling their home a genuine reason to sell it to you, they may let you have it cheaper than somebody else who is prepared to pay more money for it, but perhaps they don't like them, or they don't like their situation, because this has been someone's family home where they've raised their children, and maybe now they're moving out because they're downsizing. So they might not actually need the money, but they actually don't need the home anymore. So you have to give people justification for giving up their family home to you for a cheaper price. That's if you're a buyer, that's what I would say. And obviously you have to have a good relationship with your agent, and your agent has to be a good negotiator to be able to portray that to the people selling the house. Really important to make sure that you are genuine, and if you meet the vendors on a viewing, then obviously you can get to know them a little bit. Sometimes agents try to keep buyers away from vendors because agents aren't always as easygoing. Vendors will genuinely give a little bit more money off than the agent because it will affect the agent's money. So,
yeah, of course, that makes sense. So you're supercharged at work. You are working majority of the times. You don't stick to 9 to 5. You're with your clients even on the weekends, sometimes in the evenings, and you accommodate their requests. And it takes a certain type of person to be so charged for so many years and being consistent with it. That's why you have a great reputation in business. So what I wanted to ask is, what's your slingshot approach? And what I mean by that is, I need to load up my slingshot and spend time with connecting with some simple moments, whether that's drinking coffee and being happy, whether that's playing with my son, whether that's just basically doing something on my iPad, just drawing something on my iPad, or going for a walk, or training, or working out, or hitting that spa where I can just zone out and not be in touch with my social media or iPad and the phone and everything else. What's your slingshot moment, and how much would you contribute that to your success?
I spoke about it earlier. For me, it's nature, always will be. I live in 300 acres, and it is just the biggest blessing ever. And it's free, and I can tap into it and out of it whenever I want. But there's nature everywhere. I grew up in Regent's Park and I would go there every day as a child. And here, where I live in my property, I've got 300 acres in my community, and I indulge in that most days. And it is very giving, and I just think nature has all the answers. And I love to swim in my pool where I live, and I also love to travel. So I am, as you know, supercharged like the machine. And then I like to go away. I'll just book a flight the next day. I'm going. I need to recharge like that as well. If in the winter I'm feeling really like I need to recharge, I just go away for a few weeks. And my business, I've got a great team, so I can work remotely, which is amazing. And nowadays it's a digital world, so I do a lot remotely. But yeah, nature, the elements are what feeds my soul. The sun, the sea, the forest, fresh air, and children and my family. I love to be around children and my little dog and, everyone that's important to me.
That's nice. What do you think is going on with relationships right now?
That's a funny one, isn't it, Sam? Because we've had this chat. I'm a really indulgent person when I love somebody, and I'm all guns a-blazing, really. I'm very invested in my loving relationships, intimate relationships. But, I think you really touched on it earlier about monogamy. Very hard for certain characters to be monogamous in a world where people are at their fingertips. I feel sorry for them, really, because I've got real strength of character, but when I love someone, that is my weakness, and I become very vulnerable, which is a beautiful thing. But not everybody sees vulnerability as a beautiful thing. So I just think it's incredibly difficult for people to have one-to-one relationships nowadays, because there's so many options, and it all comes down to integrity again at the end of the day. I wouldn't disrespect somebody that I love. I would prioritise them. But I don't think everyone is able to do that,
I think there's a bigger problem than integrity, because I think people can be very honest and with integrity and just basically not go deeper into a relationship with full honesty. Yeah. So I think that's what's happening. But I really think the bigger problem, and again, I see this every day, is people are losing their connection with the Creator, the God. And I think what tends to happen is when you actually lose that connection, you're not connected with the source or the power or the guy or the girl upstairs. There are two things that's happening. You're constantly, perpetually looking for something greater, because you are stimulated by these stupid machines in our hands. And if you're on Instagram, that's like a porn site, to be perfectly honest, because it's like, and plus you have access to these porn stars. And then second thing is you are also not mindful that there is something or someone watching you. So if you do fuck up, it's going to come back and bite you in your ass. So just be a little bit mindful that this universe works in that, it operates in that fashion where you do something wrong, it's going to come back. Full disclaimer, I've had situations where I have really done wrong things to, not intentionally, but unintentionally, cause a lot of pain to certain people. And I don't have to wait till hell, till after I die. I've experienced that hellish pain here. So I can say that you need to be a little bit mindful of your actions, because it will come back, and one way or another it will bite you, because that's the law of the universe. What do you think about it?
I just think, again, like what we were speaking about with the children and confusion, I just think we have to lead by example. It's the only thing we can do, and we'll get let down, and You know, expectation leads to disappointment. You know, when we are heavily invested in relationships, you just have to accept sometimes that some people are not right for us, and some people haven't got good intentions. I just think, again, it's a very difficult world where people are confused, because in its infancy it's this whole new instant gratification and people available on tap, dating apps, porn sites, you know, and just people used to have to make an effort to have a relationship. Now, you know, I don't think they feel that they need to make that effort. And I think that's the shame of it. And young people don't know how to communicate with each other, really, vocally, you know, or they go out and speak to somebody, and, you know, they don't have the same social skills that we had to learn when we were younger. So I guess that, yeah, that's difficult. But even people of my age, you know, find relationships difficult because they're drawn into the new world. They're drawn into instant gratification and getting whatever it is that they need from something and not someone.
Yeah, I also think that there's a level of compliance that's required, that's needed in young people, and that's completely missing.
What do you mean by that?
Well, compliance is you need to monitor exactly what your kids are doing. Just giving them a phone or an iPad, or just basically, you know, doing your own thing whilst they're sitting and consuming this garbage, it might be easier for you, but all you're doing is encouraging lazy behaviors on them and encouraging your own lazy behavior. Because what you don't have to do in that moment is you don't have to actually actively spend any creative time with your children. And what they are thinking is, okay, you know what, I can be stimulated, and next time when you don't have that stimulating tool, iPad or a cell phone around them, that's exactly what they're going to be wanting, and that's not their fault, that's yours. So I believe kids are like empty buckets, and whatever you put in is what you get out. And I see also abundance of parents blaming their children for children's bad behaviors. Well, pull pause, you are literally seeing what you've created. So instead of being frustrated and angry and annoyed about children's behavior, your children's behavior, you need to actually pull pause and actually reflect that, okay, what have I been doing to contribute towards this stupid behavior? And I think that that level of accountability is totally missing right now.
100%, 100%. My best friend, well, my oldest friend, I don't have a best friend, again, another label. My oldest friend, who I've known since I was a baby, she is a family therapist, and she always says no such thing as naughty children, just naughty parents. And that really resonated with me.
Good.
Yeah, because my son, he would throw a few tantrums when he was younger and stuff, but I was also quite dysfunctional at the time. You know, I had things going on that was affecting him, and I wasn't present, and I had to go work all the time, so I wasn't present. And yeah, he's a product of me. He is a product of me, whatever way I want to look at it. Whatever way that is difficult for me to deal with, you know, he is a product of me. So if there's anything going on with your child that you don't understand, then you need to look in your mirror yourself, because they are a reflection of you at the end of the day. So it's really good to be able to see it like that, and that saves you a lot of pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it's ever too late, because although the most impressionable years are, you know, what science tells us, that the most impressionable years are up to the age of 7 when the children are growing up. And this data is out there for a lot of parents and people to actually know and read. But at the same time, I don't think it's ever too late to influence someone's behavior, because you can have a 15-year-old son. I mean, in our health practice, we have so many young adults who basically come to actually join with depression, PTSD, suicidal thoughts and stuff. These are young children. There are kids and they're like, you know, 20 years old, 19 years old, suicidal, addicted, depression, and X, Y, and Z. And when you actually look at their family structure, it's completely dysfunctional. And yes, you know, you feel sorry for their proximity, but at the same time, glad that you're actually getting to have some level of impact positively on their life. So I think it's that direction is really missing right now, a positive modeling for younger children. That's why they're deviated towards some of the, I guess it's a mixed bag of people who are providing structure. So there are some incredible people who are providing structure as Jordan Peterson. There are some less desirable people like Andrew Tate, who's basically getting a lot of attention. But at the same time, I don't think that there's anything wrong that these children are doing because they're just following a modeling structure. They're just modeling someone's behavior. So the model is the one that should be, fixed. And I normally always say that you should never blame the supply. You should always blame the demand. Now, the problem is this demand is not actually coming from children. This is coming from a lack of structure in their life, which is creating demand in these children to then be influenced by people who are, all these social media influencers. Yeah. So I think that's quite useful, and that has an impact, both in a good and a bad way. So I guess the only thing we can do is basically just try to create more good examples, more good structures. What would you say to, I know there's a lot of heavy debate about, I should be able to do whatever I want in life as a young woman. I should be able to make money any way I want. Now, in today's society, there are 3 options: do nothing and rely on your potential husband. Number 2 is do something naughty. So go down the OnlyFans route, or try the decentralized prostitution. Or number 3 is do the hard work. Yeah. Hardest thing, not because it's only from mechanics of it, it's difficult. Yeah. It's very difficult to do something, to create a business, to study, to become a better person, to become more valuable, to create an awesome business. It's also super hard because you have incredible amount of examples now on social media and in this rap world and stuff, where these young women who have beautiful brains, they are being impacted by stupid proximity and bad role models. So someone who's super successful, hyper intellectual, and have created your amazing business whilst raising an incredible son, because I know your son, how would you, what kind of things, what kind of examples would you give to some young women out there listening that you got this?
There's a lot of single mothers. That's one specific area that is growing because of the 2.4 children sort of stereotypical family unit isn't really existing in it as much anymore. There's a lot of single mothers, and so they're coming from a place of lack a lot when they don't have the support of a partner. And for me, it really, I've always been driven, but to have had a partner, who knows what I would have achieved if I had a partner standing by my side with my baby. I've been on my own with him since he was 1. I've had relationships in between, but I brought him up on my own.
But that's outside of your control, right?
It was outside of my control, but it also did drive me. It drove me and motivated me to provide a life for us that we deserved.
Would you say you have a chip on your shoulder?
I don't think I have a chip on my shoulder. I'm definitely, like you say, supercharged. I am very driven to make sure that we can do and have what we need. I am definitely driven, but I think fundamentally for everybody who needs some inspiration, I think you've just got to follow your heart. You've got to follow what you love. I love what I do. I mean, I would have preferred to have been a singer.
All right, singing skills next.
Because I'm a born entertainer and I love to entertain. That's my personality. Nice. But that's a really hard career. So, I love what I do. I love property. I love people. And I've made the best out of my sales skills, out of my personality. My personality is what I'm using to do my job. So you need to use your personality and your passions. If you love animals, have an amazing dog walking business where you're your own boss. I will always advocate for people to be their own boss.
So you would suggest to younger people, younger women, and specifically, is follow your passion.
Yes.
Follow your personality traits.
Yes.
Okay, so that's really good. And also, I guess going back to your first point is choose your partner incredibly carefully, because that will have quite a heavy impact.
I will always follow my heart, because I'm a really passionate, affectionate, outgoing person. I will always, I don't care if somebody's got absolutely nothing. That's not of any importance to me at all. I just want to be in a committed relationship where I feel loved. That's fundamental to me, Yeah. But I know that a lot of people nowadays, that wouldn't be the number one choice for them. They would want somebody with money. I have my own money. I've got my own fabulous life, but I like to be with someone that complements my life. But equally, I've been out with people where they can't pay for their own dinner, where they haven't been able to pay for a holiday, and I've always paid for them. So, but they've loved me and been committed to me in many ways. So that's also been beautiful. But again, I just think you need to stay true to yourself, and that's the best way forward.
It's really incredible, because they asked Trump what are the two most crucial qualities you look for when you recruit someone into your business. And I like Trump. I like his. He says crap sometimes, but I do like the way he's straight to the face, and he says what he thinks. But one thing he said is, give me someone who can sell, and give me someone with a chip on the shoulder. I'll take that over all the PhDs in the world.
I don't know what you mean by chip on your shoulder.
I think chip on the shoulder, the easiest way of putting that is, I'll show you.
Oh yeah, I've definitely got that.
I was going to say that you do have it. I'll show you. You definitely have it, because I've got it.
But we used that when I was younger. It's got a chip on their shoulder, like they've got a real attitude. But I guess I have got an attitude. But for people that really know me, they know I'm a complete pushover, and they can get anything out of me that they want. But in business... Yeah, I think you need that in business, because even like for me personally, even like in my personal life, I have that chip is so big and it comes from, a very early stage when I remember, I think I was about 10. I was sitting down with my mom and my uncle. I can't remember who it was, but they were having a discussion. I was like, I want to be a GDP pilot in the Air Force. I want to fly for US Marines and stuff. And they were like, well, you can't do it. I was like, why can't I do it? The assholes like literally shut down. I was like, why? And they were like, no, their brains are different. They're wired differently. I'm like, what a fucking way to make me feel great about myself. So, and at that point, I was like, you know what? I literally said to myself, I remember that point that I was like, I'll show you. And one thing I did when I had a little bit of extra freedom from financial standpoint, the first thing I did was book in my flying lessons. And I was like, I ended up, and then I did fly, and I did the landing and the takeoff and everything else, flights. And to me personally, that was such much more bigger than what it seems to people, that, oh, he knows how to fly a plane. For me, it was much bigger than that, because it was like a check to say, I showed you. And then on top of that, I think it's you when you have that, it's such a big driver into driving you, propelling you forward, because then you have more than just yourself to prove. And I think that goes down to making a social commitment. I think social commitment is super valuable, because when you make a social commitment, you're not only letting yourself down, now you have other people to let down. And that's very good reinforcement. Pressure in the nicest way, because pressure makes diamonds. So, see, I would argue the point of the learning side of social media. Right. The reason why I say that, so some time ago, maybe about a year ago, I would have actually completely agreed with the point that, studying or educating yourself from social media is absolutely amazing. However, I do think that our society right now, especially with younger kids, they're suffering with being information junkies. And I'll give you the clear example of this. Right now, if you were to actually pull a plug on all social media from my life or yours, your life would not be any worse off, because you already have so much information. It's like reading 50,000 books, but not actually doing any of those books, not implementing those practices. So I think
when we are watching these entrepreneurs and we are watching these thought leaders say the right thing that we agree with or we actually resonate with, we're like, you know what, that makes perfect sense. What does that actually do on a behavioral point of view? That actually, on subconscious level, what it's actually doing to your brain is affirming to you that you have listened to or done something nice. Now, to yourself, because you've just introduced a very positive thought in your brain or a constructive thought on how to make more money or X, Y, and Z. The issue with that is you are now so overloaded with information that just the consumption of information is giving you enough satisfaction to pull you away from doing the things that you should be doing to actually make your life a better place. So because the consumption for information is in your brain triggering that I've done something good. Yeah. So now you've done that tenfold, and before you know, the week is over, the month is over, and you haven't done jack shit. Yeah. And for that reason, I think it's very detrimental for people. I think they need to put limitations and restrictions around how much even positive information they're consuming, because it's chronic positive information junk food. That you're like, okay, so I've listened to 18 podcasts this week, and 4 have been talking about the health, 3 have been talking about longevity, 4 have been talking about financial success and X, Y, and Z, and I have actually not taken any of that and implemented it into my lifestyle, because what I'm trying to do is trying to do everything at the same time, which is not going to yield any results, because diluted focus, diluted returns. So what do you think about that? What do you think about the chronic consumption of good content leading to inaction?
Yeah, it's a very valid point. I'm hyperactive and I have attention deficit, so I need so much stimulating, so I take a bit from that, a bit from that, a bit from that. But for me, because I can only speak about myself, I go for a walk in the forest, as you know. It grounds me. I go out in the grass in the morning, put my feet on the grass, and I feel the earth under my feet, and I just love nature. Nature's got so much, all the answers are in nature. So for me and my child, we do a lot of that, and we get the balance right. But I definitely agree with you. It can be a massive distraction, and it's a new thing, isn't it? It's still in its infancy. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to move to listen to the social media. You can stay in bed all day and be entertained. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you just said to me when I came in here. It's getting up and getting on with it, but it's about being able to access it in a healthy way, and that is, I agree with you, something that is probably not what's happening at the moment with a lot of society and the younger people in the world. How will they be motivated to put this stuff into action? I guess the only thing we can do is lead by example. There is nothing more in life than we can do than that, is there? And that's all I do with my child. But I agree with you, Sam. It's a bit of a pandemic, because young people. Also, I listened to LBC yesterday, which I sometimes put on in the car as I'm driving along, and there was a really interesting talk on there about how people, young children, are being brainwashed to believe that they don't need an education. Now, I didn't have a formal education because they threw me out. And my son left halfway through his A-levels, although he's an incredible intellectual person. He was bored at school. They're being told, you don't need to go to school, you don't need to go to university, you can earn £1 million in an hour by sitting in the chair. Like, they believe it. They think, I haven't got to go to school, I haven't got to try hard, but actually, then they feel a failure because they haven't earned all this money by just sitting there doing what. So it's really confusing for them. I think it is really confusing for them because this data is all they're hearing all day, all day, all day, all day. Swipe, 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 swipe. Be a millionaire, be a millionaire. Get a boat, don't go to school. Get a jet plane, don't go to school. But actually, in real life, we need financial energy to survive, to pay for our car, to pay for our food, to pay for our holidays, and we have to get that. We have to go out and get that. We can't just sit there unless we have worked a system out that is successful from those teachings on social media.
Yes, I think going to the school is clouded by two different viewpoints. One is that you don't need to go to the school because you can make a lot of money not going to school. You don't need this education on basic level, which I think is completely wrong, regardless of what the entrepreneurs are telling you. And most of the entrepreneurs who've got, they on the social media and they made millions, billions and billions, they're all preaching the same thing. I was a shit kid at school. I had the poorest grades in X, Y, and Z. And now look at me, I'm a billionaire through hard work and grit. Yes, but you need your basic education. You can't be doing that crap when you're 8 years old. You don't, and these kids, they do have access to social media. So one thing I think most of these, these coaches and these entrepreneurs, they're not taking accountabilities. They are actually pumping this message out to even children who are below the age of 10. So just be mindful of when you're saying that you don't need a grade, you don't need a school. There are two things. One is you can be hyper successful in career and success in business and relationships without having to get incredible grades. That I agree with. But what I'm saying is that at the same time, you want to very clearly explain your message that you still need to go through some level of education in your beginning years to literally know how to write an email, to actually learn how to basically do your accounts, just learn the basics of math. Yes. All of these entrepreneurs who have made millions and millions, they are mixing this message, because what they're saying is industrial revolution, to go and get a job, start a business. I agree with that. But what I don't agree with is just not even think about the basic education. I think that is clouded by the second problem, which I do think is the problem, where the kids are now, as early as ages of 3, are being told the difference between transgender males, females, and 67 different sexes and genders. And I don't think that conversation needs to happen with kids who are 3 years old. I don't want my son to be told, gay BC instead of ABC. I want him to learn basics. I don't want sex to be introduced to him when he's 3 years old or 4 years old or 5 years old. He's an innocent brain. He needs to learn. He needs to understand cause and effect. He needs to be more creative. He needs to draw. He needs to connect with flowers. He needs to learn how the trees and the animals and everything else. Why are we even entertaining this bullshit conversation in our schooling system? Because I think that's what the problem is. What's your viewpoint?
Yeah, this is a big one, isn't it? This is a really big one. I'm somebody who, we've spoke about this before, I call it discrimination disability, yeah? When people discriminate against people for their colour, for their gender, for their sexual orientation, for how much money they've got, how tall they are, how small they are, how fat they are. Difference. People discriminate. What we have to teach our children is that it's absolutely perfect to be yourself. If you want to be feminine, if you're a man, it's a beautiful thing to be in touch with your feminine side. If you want to be masculine, I can be really masculine. I've got a lot of very male traits. I'm a very dominant, confident woman, but I'm also a really feminine, sensitive woman. So to be true to yourself is what we need to teach our children. Not, like you say, that's very confusing for them to learn. This is a really big statement I'm going to make, and my friends know that this is how I've always felt. I don't actually believe in gay. I don't think I could fall in love with a woman tomorrow. I've never had a girlfriend, but I wouldn't count it out. I wouldn't rule it out, because we fall in love with souls. We fall in love with feeling. We fall in love with people. So why put a label on it? You only love men. you only love women or you love men and women. That's silly. I don't believe in it myself. That's a big debate to have. I just think you cut yourself off to things when you label yourself as such, you know? So I think children in school need to be nurtured to be themselves. If they want to put a dress on, if they're a boy, absolutely embrace that. If they want a Barbie, if they don't want a Ken, let them have this is where I think it's got really confusing, and that's where it's causing quite a lot of resentment in parents who are sending their children to school without any control about what they're learning.
Yeah, I think there are two sides to this again, Hayley, because I think if you're a young boy and you want to put on a dress, the problem is maybe 50 years ago that would have been okay. Now you do that and you're going to get reported to basically take your son to get his sex change and pump him with a lot of hormones. This is happening all across the United States right now. And if parents don't action that silly behavior, then they actually get prosecuted and their children can be taken away. So I think there are two sides to this. We also have to, there's a timing involved in all action and in action, right? So I think 50 years ago, if that was a dialogue, it would be different. But now I think there's more concern coming from parents trying to protect their children because my son has basically grabbed a Barbie doll and he was basically taking her on a car ride with his dinosaur, doesn't mean that he's a girl. No. Likewise, if someone's daughter is playing with Batman, doesn't mean anything. No. But I think what's happening is it's causing a lot of confusion. I think although the narrative of let them be and let them do whatever you want, I think it's that viewpoint maybe is not incredibly useful in a lost society which has not got any culture. The society, especially Western world, and I'm probably going to get into a lot of trouble for saying this, but Western civilization don't have much culture left, don't have presence and awareness of your connection with the Creator, the God. And the religion, I guess, is taking a back seat because of that. From monogamous relationships, not many people believe in that anymore. So what's happening is with that viewpoint that, look, people connect with people and you can be whatever you want, all of those the messages are coming from a place of love, and I understand that. However, a simple mind, a younger mind, a beautiful mind can take that as, I don't know where to go. There's no structure. And without a structure, you're just basically lost. The more lost you are, the more problems you have. That's why even some of the really successful people in our generation today, like Jordan Peterson, he's doing incredibly well because he's sticking to a structured message. Follow God, be religious because it gives you a structure. Focus on your self-development, focus on what your family values and improve yourself, right? And believe in a monogamous relationship because that's a structured way. What's the alternative? Just lost and just be whoever you want, whenever you want, however you want. You can be a cat or a table. And that's actually creating a lot of problems, especially for younger kids.
Yeah, okay. I hear you. I'm quite honest about how I feel about that gay thing, just because I think it's been such a pressure for so many people, especially in culture. Our Muslim friends, that's obviously a very taboo thing to be gay in a Muslim culture, but it's actually a real thing. And for them to have to hide it, or for them to actually speak about it, actually have a conversation with their parents about it, even in Western, some of my friends that have said, I'm going to come out, I'm going to tell people that I'm gay, but why would you? I don't understand. I personally don't understand it. I just think it's up to you what you do. It's not for anyone else to you have to labeling things. I think it causes a lot of pressure, but I do agree with you about structure. I do agree with that. In Western society, religion has been completely sidestepped. Mm-hmm. It's skipped a generation, I think. I'm a spiritual person. I believe in being kind and loving. That's my nature. And having integrity wherever I can have integrity as much as I possibly can. And I just think, I believe I'm God's little helper. Mm-hmm. That's my role. And whatever that means, I just think whenever I can make the right decision when there's a wrong decision that might be beneficial to me financially, that might be beneficial to me sexually, I choose to have integrity. Yeah. And that's my choice, because I want to put my head on the pillow at night and sleep.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that's good, because as long as you're okay within yourself, I think that's what matters. Yeah. Let me ask you this question, which is again about, like, I think it comes from a confusion in our society today. 87 genders.
87?
87 genders.
Where's that from?
And in the United States, there's more than 114 genders now.
What about that? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, they've got the whole alphabet on a lock. So in my viewpoint, I think there are two. There's a man and a woman. Yeah. That's how I grew up, and I will probably die with that belief. What's your viewpoint?
I just think we're all one, aren't we? I think you've really got to think about it like that. Gender is what? Body parts? Or do you see what I mean? It can be a really grey area, Sam. What is gender? I'm born a woman.
I'm talking about biologically
So
speaking.
biologically, yeah. I'm born a woman, you're born a man.
Sure. But what if someone basically says, because this is creating a lot of trouble, especially in the world of sports and everything else, although UK has been leading the path to actually correct some of this crazy bullshit, but which is great, because a lot of people, a lot of women were getting hurt and in prisons. It was crazy, catastrophic situations happening, but they're putting a pause to this, which is great. But what I'm saying is, if you're biologically speaking, do you think there's a man or a woman, or do you think that you could be, there's more to it than you could be a plant, or you could be a tree, or you could be a table? I mean, do you think there's more to it? Like, you can wake up and feel whatever you want to, because I have a very super rational viewpoint on that what you feel like is not you. You are biologically speaking either a man or a woman.
Yes. But I do think that if you wanted to put a dress on, I would love you the same. Yeah. Yeah? And if I wanted to shave my head bald and wear a suit, you would love me the same. Right. You know, that's my viewpoint. Okay. I don't believe that people should chop their bits off. Right. That's what I think, yeah? I don't think they should. Yeah. But if they want to, who are us to judge them, Sam? Yeah. It's not for us to judge them. But I think the confusion comes in when, the lines are crossed and blurred. This is where the confusion comes in. I think also the confusion comes from the fact that, listen, I don't have any problem with gay people. I don't have any problem with transgender people. You do you be happy, you do whatever you need to do. What I have a problem with is, don't tell me what I should be or shouldn't be doing. Yeah. Because I have got nothing to do with you, and you've got nothing to do with me. It's none of your business. Yeah, exactly. So therefore, if I'm not actually telling you what you shouldn't be doing, then you shouldn't be telling me what I should or shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be telling me to believe something which logically is just simply incorrect. But if you want to do it, go for it. It's your life. You believe whatever you want. If you want to believe in whatever you want to believe in, that's great. I believe in God. I believe in the Creator. I believe in the superpower. I believe in the connection with the Creator. That's my belief. Right? And that's got nothing to do with anybody else. So neither will I ever impose that on anyone. And I don't want that their personal belief to be imposed on me, if that makes sense. Last question, because we're running out of time. Last question. If you had one text message to send to the whole planet, right? So you basically type a quick message, and that goes to every single person, every guy, girl, kids, young people, old people, everybody. What would that message say, and why? Oh, wow. I think I always say that the one thing that everybody needs more of is love. That you've never got enough of. Lead from love. There you go. Beautiful. Hayley, thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Sam.